Hi, it's Mr. Warren here. This is your second lesson on your big question, does prison work? This is lesson 2, structuring your writing. Now, you should have already had a look at the Foursquare plan lesson that we did last time. If you haven't done that lesson, it's really important that you go back and do that lesson first, as you won't have anything to write about in this lesson if you haven't already done it. Okay, so today I'm going to talk you through a structure for a paragraph. Hopefully for some of you this will be familiar. For some of you, hopefully it'll be useful guidance. Even if you are pretty confident on how to structure a paragraph, it still might be useful to have a look through this video just to double check and see whether there's any improvement that you might be able to make. Okay, so I'm going to be using a structure called TPEAL, or Topic, Point, Evidence, Explain and Link. You'll use that to structure your essay. Okay, so to start off with, you're going to introduce your topic. So the first thing that I'm going to write about in this paragraph for you today is reoffenders. Okay. Now your topic sentence is really important. It lets your reader know what the rest of the paragraph is going to be about. Okay. It's also a useful place to help define any terms that you might be using. So reoffenders, for example. So I'm just going to read my topic sentence for you now. Reoffenders are criminals who commit another crime, having already spent time in prison. Every time a criminal spends time in prison, it costs money. Okay, so you can clearly see that I've introduced my topic for the paragraph, which is reoffenders, and I've given a little bit of detail on what a reoffender is. Now, your next thing to do is to come up with your point or your argument. Now, remember, with an essay, you're trying to put across your view, so you're essentially arguing a point. My point is that the percentage of prisoners in the UK who reoffend is terrible, so I'm saying that it's really not acceptable that we have so many prisoners reoffending after they've already been to prison. Other similarly wealthy nations have much better ways of reducing reoffending. So there's a second element to my point. Firstly, that prisoners in the UK are really quite likely to reoffend, and that's really not a good thing. And then secondly, that other nations, so other countries, have a much better way of dealing with this system and reducing that reoffending rate. Now, I can say that, but what's really important is that I back up what I'm saying with some evidence. So here we go, we introduce that evidence. In Denmark, for example, the reoffending rate is only 27% compared to the UK's 48%. Okay, that's a nice little statistic there. I've taken that from the extract in the title, so you'll all be familiar with that percentage. You can see that I've used an evidence connective just to clearly indicate to my reader that I'm about to tell them something like a fact or a statistic, or something to support my argument. Now, just like my point, my evidence has two parts. Firstly, I've included that percentage showing that Denmark has a better rate of reoffending, and secondly, I'm giving some examples of the better ways that they are reducing their offending. So I'm talking about how they're helping them to find work, helping them with education, sorting out any drug and alcohol problems that the prisoners might have. And then also, what's really nice to do is if you can find a nice quote to support what you're saying. So Anne-Marie Høgsche, Denmark's prisons minister, said, "Most prisoners, given those chances, will not re-enter crime." Now, this is a quote that I've taken from some research I did. You should have done your own research on prisons, so you should have some other quotes or statistics and things like that to bring into your essay. Now, I picked Anne-Marie Høgsche because she's Denmark's prisons minister. I did that research by looking at that initial statistic and going, well, what do they do in Denmark? So I looked up what they did in Denmark, and then in the article that I read, her name came up. She was a prisons minister, so she seems like an appropriate person to bring up in the conversation. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is explain our evidence and explain to your reader really clearly why it's relevant to the argument you're making. So Denmark is clearly doing something right, which is why it's so frustrating that the UK is doing the exact opposite. So I'm explaining clearly why I've included that evidence. So it shows that Denmark is doing something right, and it shows that we're disappointed with what the UK is doing. We should start looking at the facts and move to a system like Denmark's. If we do not, we will keep wasting money on repeat offenders. So that final sentence there is really important. If we do not, we will keep wasting money on repeat offenders. I'm making it really clear why it's important that we need to do something about it. And then finally, we have our link. Now, your link is an opportunity to link back to your big question, does prison work? You remember the point of this paragraph is to answer that question and give your opinion on it. And then secondly, link to the next part of your essay. So firstly, linking back to our big question, we're making it really clear what our opinion is. So therefore, in my opinion, something is not working with UK prisons. It seems clear to me that rehabilitation, not harsher sentencing, is the answer. Okay. Again, the harsher sentencing thing, that means giving people longer sentences for crimes. Again, I've taken that from the extract that you were given at the top. Okay, now I said there were two parts to the link, linking it back to the big question, but also linking it to something else. That something else is the next part of your essay. Okay, so I've said it seemed clear to me that rehabilitation, not harsher sentencing, is the answer. Now that's a nice little segue there. It links me into my next paragraph, and that will be my topic sentence for my next paragraph. Rehabilitation is, and just like I did at the top of this paragraph, I'll explain what rehabilitation is. Now, you heard me use the word segue there, not that type of segue. A segue is a smooth transition. When you segue in conversation, you change the topic so smoothly that people might not even notice. A good speaker knows how to segue. They can get from one topic to another so easily that you hardly notice the topic changed. Now that's what you're aiming to do in your essay. You're aiming to go from one logical argument into the next logical argument and draw the links between the two. Okay, I hope this has been helpful for you. What I would suggest you do now is take some time, draft your first paragraph, and go through and label each section: topic, point, evidence explained, link. If you've already started writing your essay, it might be worth going back through and can you find those elements in each paragraph? If you can't, then you might need to think about restructuring it and having another go. I hope this has been helpful. Bye.